I would like to go over the assignment, and there are several parts to this assignment. You will be given an HTML page as shown here. As I scroll down, there is a form. Where it says error here, they are actually paragraphs, which is where the error message will go. I just have some text in there so that you can actually see them. So you will be validating the form, making sure that the user filled these things in, making sure they check the box, and everything will be happening when we hit the submit button. The errors are going to stay here on this page. We're not going to a separate page, so we will be using what is called a postback. Notice on this page we have a header section and we also have a navigation section. In a real-world situation, the header and navigation would be located on every page in the website. Therefore, you are going to use a PHP include to include the HTML for the header and the navigation. You will also be doing the same for the footer section here. If you look at the source code, here is the header and here is the navigation. So this will be placed in the include file. Because we are only placing HTML in the include file extension should be HTML. However, this page has to be a PHP extension because there will be PHP code on it. Here is the footer section, which will also be placed in a separate PHP include with a .html extension. Here is our form. We are using method equals post, and for the action, we will be posting this back to itself, to the same page. Therefore, you will need to code in $_server, that is a global variable, with the parameter php_self, which will return the file name of the current file. That will be the action, and you will code it in correctly. You can see I have given you the placeholders where the error messages will go. We have a submit button with a name, and we have a clear button. You also have a thank you page. After the user has successfully submitted the form, it will be redirected to this thank you page. The thank you page also contains the same header and navigation and the same footer. Therefore, you will use PHP includes for the header and the footer, and the navigation. You will use the same files that you did for the other page. Therefore, this page will also have a PHP extension. So now let's look at validating this form. Notice I have page loaded up here. This is coming from the PHP page, which this is. That is just telling me that my PHP is working correctly. When I click the submit button, I have 4 error messages for each of the 4 form elements. When you start developing this page, do not develop all the code at once. Develop one thing at a time. Work on the first name, making sure you can access that, making sure you check it, and making sure you can give the error message and clear the error message. Then work on the last name, then the email, then the checkbox. In this manner, you will catch your errors early. I use a lot of echo statements inside my code just to verify that the code is working correctly, and then I comment it out. Now, if I enter my name in the first name text box and I click submit, notice the error message disappears. Now up here, see my test? First name is Teresa. Now, when I put my last name in the next text box and I click submit, now that error message goes away. Now up here, I see last name equals Pelkie, but look what happened to the first name. The value is no longer there. The error message is back. So that's another reason to test one thing at a time. All right, why is this happening? This is characteristic of a postback. The values entered in the form do not stay in the form. They disappear every time you hit the Submit button. After you're finished with this section of code, you're going to want to put the values back into the text box, making this what is called a sticky form. All right, so let's try this again. I click the Submit button. There's my error messages. Now I will type in my name. I will click the Submit button. My name stays there. Here's my test, right up here, my echo statement. Now I will code in my last name. Notice the names stay, the error messages do not come back, and notice those values are being retained for me. So once everything has been submitted, I have a thank you message here, just so that I can test it. Ultimately, we will be redirected to a thank you page. Let's take a look at the source code. Notice the action of my form. PHP interprets the $_server PHP self, and in my source code, I actually see returned the path to the file on which the form resides. My values are being entered in my text box. And this is because of the PHP code I have written. Remember, we see the result of our echo statements here. So here's the value for the email. When it comes to the checkbox has a value already. How we keep that check in the checkbox is by coding in the one-sided attribute checked. You want to have an echo statement that is echoing back that word. So in your code, you're going to have placeholders inside the body with the echo statement so that we can display an error message. You will also be using PHP code to re-enter the value that the user entered. All of these are involving variables. Remember, when the page loads, the code is executed from the top down. If there is a variable that is not defined, it will produce an error. Therefore, it is really important to initialize all variables being used to an empty string right from the beginning. You need to make sure that you check to see if the form has been submitted before you start analyzing the data. You will need one if block for every form element. Again, test the if, test the else, make sure everything is working. Okay, I am back on the form and I have everything filled in except my checkbox. I see my error message, and when I check, then I click Submit, I am taken to the thank you page. One thing I would like to point out. If I were to hit the browser back button to go back to that form, the error message would still be there. You saw earlier that when we displayed the thank you message on the page, that the error messages all did disappear. This is because when you hit the back button, you are going back to the previous page. One way to make this a little more professional is to link the home button to the original page, and when you do that, you're loading the page fresh rather than just going back to the previous version, and there are no error messages on the page. So again, we will be processing this form on the same page, giving error messages, putting the values back in the form element, making sure the checkbox is checked, and when we submit, we will be redirected to the thank you page.